talking about inclusivity, what does inclusivity mean to you, and what was the purpose of bringing that SwimPix to make sure that every single child has the same opportunity?
I think when we first sort of developed it, we were kind of thinking of special educational needs and disabilities, but it became very clear. So, for example, if you use a storyboard, so we've got some boards that you can use on poolside, and you've got 5 different pictures of what you're going to do that lesson. Automatically, it's inclusive because you've got children. Perhaps I personally think all children have some kind of need anyway in their growing up, but you've got how you're going to get in. So whether you're perhaps dyslexic and the words don't mean an awful lot, but the picture tells me exactly what to do, that's great. You might have someone who's autistic in your group, which will reduce the anxiety because they know what's going to happen in that lesson. And, you know, if the teacher explains it at the beginning, it kind of makes it inclusive because it's not just for the child that's autistic, it's for everybody in that group, the 15 or 20 children you might have. And the other thing I quite like about it is it's tactile. So you can pass it along the line, you know, if you need to. And it just gives them a little bit of ownership. So it includes everybody in that lesson. So that's why I think our product is very inclusive, because it's very clear what you want them to have a go at.
Today's guest is Alison Bell. Alison was a GB national synchronised swimmer, a GB national coach for synchronised swimming from 1989 to 1996. Alison and Tim Arundel are founders of ASWim.uk, and they've come up with an amazing resources called SwimPix. SwimPix is all to do with the development of visual resources for sport, and it puts a big stamp on inclusivity. Alison's words: inclusivity is positive, fun, and engaging experience for all. These resources are so beneficial for the children and so beneficial for teachers who are constantly striving to achieve best practice. As a content creator myself, I use Swimming in School Swimming Charter for the lessons that I create within my school setting. And I want to dive into the booklet that they have designed. It's a break it down book that focuses on that charter. So we're going to talk a lot to do with primary swimming in today's podcast. On top of that, there's some accessories and further resources on their website that are just the wow factor. And if you want to strive to be the best and bring in some quality lessons, you need to take advantage of ASWim.uk.
Hi, my name's Sam Horton. Welcome to the Primary P League podcast. This is my pilot episode, and I have Alison Bell on my podcast today. Good afternoon, Alison.
Good afternoon. It's nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much for being on. As I say, it's my first episode, and having you on here is so awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. Now, before we dive into other things, I just want to talk about you as a GB national synchronised swimmer. So what was the train like and expectations as a GB athlete back then?
Well, hard work. It was a long time ago now, but we trained really hard at the time, probably 6 hours a day, doing different types of sort of speed training, gym training, gymnastics, routine work with the music. So yeah, it's like having a full-time job really, but lovely. Wouldn't change it for the world. It was great.
And then how did that help you? Like for me, like obviously I'm nowhere near like your journey, but like for me, I started off as a sports coach and I got promoted as a PE teacher, then a PE lead. So I've been on that journey to help me out. So I started from the bottom all the way up. So for yourself as a Team GB synchronized swimmers coach, that is phenomenal. So how was that transition? Was it a smooth transition? Did it benefit you being an athlete back in the day?
Well, when I was 18, and that was when I was still swimming, I did my level 1 and level 2 teaching swimming. I was always enjoying that. I was actually working as a lifeguard at the time, and people sort of knew that I was, you know, like an athlete, I suppose, and they were asking me, you know, to teach their children to swim. And I actually found a love for it. And actually next year will be my 40 years of teaching swimming. So I still get a buzz out of teaching a child to swim. I think it's amazing. So I was already kind of teaching, and then when I was 21, sadly, I did have an injury, so I had to retire. But that kind of led quite nicely into coaching. So I coached a local club, Bexley synchronised swimming team. We were very successful, and then I did like county teams and district teams, and then worked my way up to the national teams, which I coached for sort of pretty much 9 years, which I absolutely loved. It was brilliant.
Wow, that sounds absolutely amazing. Now I want to move on to ASWim, aswim.uk,
Yeah.
and then with ASWim, could you, with people who aren't in know, what is ASWim?
Okay, so ASWim is learning resources. They are visual learning resources. So I think for me as a person, I am dyslexic, so I do kind of learn and think in pictures, which is something I've learned over the last, so many years. Which kind of makes sense. When I was back in my artistic swimming days, and I still teach now for fun, but we always used to draw out using stick men, or stick people, like the routines and the patterns and everything. And I often made my own visual resources when I was teaching Learn to Swim programs, sort of during that time. And then I met a guy, Tim Arundel, who is the other director of ASWim, and he's a graphic designer and a level 2 swimming teacher. And we just started this project. We just thought, why don't we try it? And we started off with doing actually pictures of children doing things, but then we quickly realised you couldn't see what was happening underwater, which is very similar to when you're teaching. We then tried graphic, like cartoon kind of pictures, but again, there was so much detail on them. So somebody perhaps with autism would be more interested in the colour of the hat rather than what we're actually asking them to do. So we went back to the stickmen. I used to draw stickmen all the time, and that's where it kind of came about. So it's a visual aid of we pretty much think every skill or stroke when you're teaching a Learn to Swim program, so it gives them an idea of what to do.
Well, I'm very new into my swimming career. I'm a swimming coordinator. I've been swimming coordinator within my school setting for 2 years, and I always go back to that stick man, because like I'm trying to break down a skill to a child, and if they don't get it, I bring them straight over to the whiteboard, and there's me just trying to draw a child with streamlined body. I bring in the waves as well, and that's so beneficial for visual learners. Now within the swimming sector, for primary swimming sector, I find it's quite a challenging task in a way that you just don't know who you're going to get. Like, for example, in a swim school, you can have same 6-7 children for months and months and months and months on end. But in a prime school setting, I feel like you have so many different amount of children at so many different ability groups. I've got so many variations of great depth. I've got so many variations of expected. I've got EAL children. I've got children never been in the water before. So I think using your resources, SwimPix, will be so beneficial for that inclusivity. So talking about inclusivity, what does inclusivity mean to you, and what was the purpose of bringing that SwimPix to make sure that every single child has the same opportunity?
I think when we first sort of developed it, we were kind of thinking of special educational needs and disabilities, but it became very clear. So, for example, if you use a storyboard, so we've got some boards that you can use on poolside, and you've got 5 different pictures of what you're going to do that lesson. Automatically, it's inclusive because you've got children. Perhaps I personally think all children have some kind of need anyway in their growing up, but you've got how you're going to get in. So whether you're perhaps dyslexic and the words don't mean an awful lot, but the picture tells me exactly what to do, that's great. You might have someone who's autistic in your group, which will reduce the anxiety because they know what's going to happen in that lesson. And, if the teacher explains it at the beginning, it kind of makes it inclusive, because it's not just for the child that's autistic, it's for everybody in that group, the 15 or 20 children you might have. And the other thing I quite like about it is it's tactile, so you can pass it along the line, if you need to, and it just gives them a little bit of ownership, so it includes everybody in that lesson. So that's why I think our product is very inclusive, because it's very clear what you want them to have a go at.
It's like in a primary school setting, we call it the now and next board. What I love about your boards and what I love about your resources is that for me as a swimming lead, I constantly am striving for best practice. And I feel like if somebody an onlooker is watching my lesson with your SwimPix resources, it just looks very professional. And having that structure, like you said, I do a warm up nice and quickly, get them engaged, and then I do a learn objective and lesson breakdown. I could easily use your board as my lesson breakdown, and I think it's so beneficial, like you're saying, the way that it's so inclusive, because every single child, they'll have that excitement. They go, "Oh, what am I doing next? Oh, I've just achieved this. This is my next bit." So I think it's amazing. It's so
Yeah,
cool.
we do get children sometimes at the beginning of lessons and sort of go, when are we doing that bit? You know, and I can't wait to do that bit. You know, so it does engage them. It gives them something to, you know, another resource to be engaged with.
So you're very much talking about the children. So how would it benefit someone like myself of delivering best practice? How would your resources help me with delivering best practice?
I think swimming is one of the probably only sports that when you're teaching, you can't demonstrate the skill properly unless you're in the water.
Yeah.
And if you're in, then it becomes unsafe. For example, if you're going to even do a star float on your front, you lose contact of your swimmer. So that wouldn't be best practice. So what this resource allows you to do is give them a clear picture of what you want them to do. So whereas we all know that communication is everyone receives it slightly differently, whereas this helps to get it a little bit more on everybody understanding what's needed. So I think in that regard for best practice, and it does create faster learning. So particularly in school swimming, where you might have to explain something without the resource a few times in many different ways for everybody to understand, the SwimPix kind of says it. They say a picture's 1,000 words, and I really stick by that. So I think that would give best practice.
I 100% agree, because the only two things that I use within my swimming is I will show a clear demonstration, and then I'll get peer-on-peer support. And I think, like I say, having that visual aid, nothing beats visual aid. I think that is top three. That is the best of the best.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about primary swimming, because as I'm a swimming lead, I teach a primary school setting, and for me, I'm actually been shortlisted for the primary school swimming award, the nationals,
Amazing!
yeah.
Congratulations.
So I find out on November the 30th if we're successful. So I use Swim England's school swimming charter as my main resource, and I absolutely love resources because I'm a content creator, and I've never achieved anything without support. My journey, I've had some amazing mentors. I've had some amazing governing bodies with resources, and this is a true story. About 2 months ago, I was online and I was looking and looking and looking, and I found ASWim.uk, and I found the Break It Down book for the school swimming charter, and I was like, yes, I've actually found something I've been looking for ages and ages. So I purchased it a couple months ago, and I'm literally going to dive into that to create my systems even better, because for me, I constantly strive to be the best because I want the children to achieve the best opportunity. So I just wanted to just talk a little bit about the book itself and what kind of things are in there, basically.
Okay, so we've got there's some sections in there about what to do before you go to the pool. So I think with school swimming in many areas, there's, you know, maybe just a 6-week block. So you don't want to be doing things like pool rules for 20 minutes in your first lesson, for example. So there's lots of things in the book that you can do before you go to the lesson. We've got a social story for any children that might have a bit of anxiety about going, and it can be read as many times what might happen at the lesson. In my experience, that works wonders to kind of get them ready to go. So there's lots about getting ready. Within the Swim England Charter, there's 5 different stages. So you can pick up the way the book's designed is that it's in the stage. So you can go to a certain stage and look at the practices that would be relevant to be able to teach that particular badge if that's what you're working towards. So I've tried to sort of break it down. I think it's a really useful resource if swimming, perhaps you only do it within school swimming and you're a primary school teacher and you're going, maybe you've done the teacher and the Swim England teacher.
Yeah.
And that it's amazing. I've tutored that course and I've used it many times for those learning, and they've taken it away with absolute happiness because they've got a resource they can dip in and out of, which is what it's about. There's quite a big section in there in water safety. And one of the things I really like about the water safety section is we've put 11 different situations in there, like water awareness. So, for example, one of my favourites is winter water safety. So we've got a picture of a frozen lake, for example, and in the book we've got a little red flash that tells you the dangers if you're not sure. And then we've also got a situation, actually, I've fallen through the ice. So you're hoping that the first card would be, we wouldn't go on that. Why would we not go on that? But if that didn't happen and you have fallen through, how do we actually get ourselves out of the ice safely? So there's 11 different situations. It can be taught in school, which I love because, again, water space can be really small, not that long. So you can do this in a classroom, in the gym, and then you can go to the pool, and some of them you can act out, in the water. How would I do safe self-rescue, which is a big part of the national curriculum. So that's what's in the book as well. It kind of tells you how to deliver that.
Well, I'm quite lucky in the way that within my school setting, I've got the pool on site. That's why I am the swimming lead. And I understand that is quite challenging for primary schools where it's all to do with cost, it's all to do with timing, it's all to do with if there are any spaces at the leisure centre, it's all to do with sometimes the teacher goes in the water and supports the swimming teacher as well. So it's getting that right as well, and constantly just trying to get that best practice and the active learning time, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of hurdles. I don't normally do dry that often because I've got the pool on site. I understand that I link stuff in like through gymnastics and dance, but I did actually do a dry one recently just because the pool was closed. I absolutely loved it. It was awesome because we went through the water safety code. We did reach rescue where they're lying on the floor and bringing the woggles into the pool. I thought it was amazing. I really enjoyed it. I mean, me personally, so I hope the children did as well. Now, with myself, for myself, it's very much, I feel it's very much important for primary school setting that there's two things that I want children to achieve. And the first one is that for me as the lead, I want them to constantly improve their skills. And it's very, very important that we are seeing improvement and we are focused on the national curriculum outcomes, the 25 metres, variety strokes and water safety. And as important, I think, building the profile of swimming, that love and passion for the subject. I think that is so, so important because if they have that love and passion, that child will go home, speak to their parents and guardians saying that, oh, I can't wait for next week's swimming lesson. Oh, there's an after school club on, I want to join. Oh, can we go to the leisure centre tonight? I think it's so important to really build that because I think primary school, you build it up and then from year 7, it kind of disappears. And I don't know why. Do you know the reasons why we put so much effort in the primary school setting and it suddenly just disappears at secondary school?
I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's about getting that passion, isn't it? And I think with school swimming, one of the things that perhaps maybe it's education that's not there is that, I mean, obviously we know my background's artistic swimming, but if you've got children that are swimming in clubs, like competitive swimming, within school swimming with those groups, there's not a huge amount you can teach them extra in regards to strokes, etc. But you could do some artistic swimming with them to build their sort of knowledge of the other aquatic skills. And in this Swim England's charter, you have got those other skills, like there's mini polo there. And actually Break It Down book, which we were talking about earlier, it shows you how to break those skills down. Even just doing some shooting practice And I think that, you give a child a ball in a swimming pool and you could leave them probably for half an hour playing and treading water, because it does build that excitement and that passion. So I think within school swimming, let's get the other aquatic disciplines in there for those children that are ready, which will build excitement. And there's a whole world of aquatic skills, isn't there? Open water, and etc. So, it just kind of gives them experiences perhaps they wouldn't have. So it's creating those opportunities for those children.
Well, there's a couple of things that I do. I very much focus on the environment is key. So I'm building a strong environment where learning can commence. So I very much focus on that when the children come into the water, they have to follow my pool rules. They have to try their best, show that love of learning, support their friends. We're one team. We're all trying to achieve best practice together. So it's a very positive environment for me. And building that profile of swimming is so important. For example, last week I did a water polo because it is on the Aquatics Award. So I'm actually, there's a purpose. So if my head comes in, I'll go, it's on the award. So there is a purpose. And my PE teacher, he was actually teaching invasion games that half term as well. So he clearly bring those things that they've taught throughout that lesson and transferable skills into the water. And they absolutely loved the water polo. And they all went, oh, this is the best lesson I've ever had. And for me as the swimming lead, it was so rewarding. And you get a massive buzz because you're just leaving school that day thinking, I've got 60 children who I've taught today, and every single one loved their swimming lesson. And that's what it's about.
It is. And I think you can do that lower down. And just to give you an example, it's about giving the children sometimes a little bit of ownership on the lesson, I find. So what I've done with the SwimPix, we've used our sequence board, which is just 3 cards, for example, and you might get them floating in a star float, pencil float, tuck float, but then you ask the children to mix them up, and then they all try, whoever's mixed it up, they all have a go at doing that, and then they take turns, and then the floating becomes really exciting because they can mix it up and try different ways of rotating into a tuck and a float. And the engagement is they just start talking about it, and then you've got them, haven't you? So so I love that engagement and giving them a little bit of the ownership.
So you talked about the breakdown book with the primary swimming and school swimming charter. Now, is there any other resources, booklets or any other resources that are going to be very beneficial for me as a swimming lead to create those systems to really focus on achieving outstanding best practice for primary swimming?
We do have a mini cards which are on a lanyard. I can show you actually. I've got one just here. So they're like this. So these are, so if you've got like a child perhaps that needs more on a one-to-one basis, and you may have a teacher in the water, we have 4 Learn with SwimPix. You can buy these in a pack of 4, and you've got your learn to swim skills through to the more difficult to, again, demonstrate yourself. These are actually a waterproof card, which is amazing. I have to say, I'm really impressed myself. So they're really good, and they do come on a thing where a safety brake, so they come off. So they're really useful. The other one we have in big set and a small set is these communication cards. So if you've got a child that needs maybe non-verbal and needs a little bit of help, maybe even, are you sad? Are you happy? Things like, do I need to go to the toilet? I think we've got in here. I'll show you that one in a moment. This one I love, stay up and hold the side. One of my favourite ones. But yeah, like they might want to use going to the toilet, for example, and they can give you that card. There we go. I found it, that one. So they could just show you that. So it's like a 2-way communication. So yeah, we do have some other kind of resources that would sort of help you out with that.
Well, I'm definitely going to be purchasing some of that. Because it's literally, I looked on your website, for me, it's like a kid at Christmas. I want to buy everything. There's one thing that I thought was so awesome, and it was that kind of toy person where you can put them into streamline, and I'm buying some of those. Those are so cool.
Yeah. Demonstration dolls, yes. Yeah. They're brilliant because you can move them into any positions that you want to. My advice on that is practice with them. I mean, they're hours of fun. I used to use them with artistic swimming. We used to use them to show different positions, but they're great for learning to swim. So they're a fantastic, another visual resource. That's amazing.
Excellent. So where can I get all these resources? What's the website called again? Sorry.
So it's aswim.uk, and on there we've got lots of actually free resources. We've actually got, if you go to the training tab, we've got some primary school projects that I've done over COVID, where we've got lesson plans for classroom, gym. Actually, we've done with my colleague Lorna Crust, we did some water safety assemblies, which were really well using SwimPix. So that's all on there free. And we've got our shop on there where you can buy all the different resources. Most of our resources are now called Learn with SwimPix. And you can just sort of, hopefully it's quite straightforward. You can dip in, but you can always contact us if you need some advice on what might be a useful resource for your setting.
Thank you very much. Now, I just wanted to dive into top 5 tips for a quality primary swimming lesson. I just want to see if you got to help myself out or help out the listeners on 5 tips for a quality lesson.
Okay, I would say first lesson, get them in, play a game with them to do your assessment so that they are active within that first 30-minute lesson. So that would be one of mine.
Super. I like that.
Yeah. Okay. So another one, make sure that you do know your children and plan the lessons before you go. So if you're working with a local leisure centre and they have level 2 teachers there, it is okay to say, right, we want to work towards this programme the next 6 weeks. So that would be my second one.
I said that recently that you don't want to go in blind if you're supporting. It's so beneficial just ask the stuff so you can actually help the children out. It makes sense.
Yeah. Absolutely, and get trained so that you can help them and, as you say, make a difference. I would say use SwimPix resources, to help them, but in lots of different ways. And we are at the moment developing some new videos that I'm doing is to sort of show how to use them in a number of ways. So one, for example, you can put your core aquatic skills on top of floats. So you might have 3 or 4 and they can be floating around maybe on a different colour float, for example. So you might say red and then the children grab the red, so they might all just be practicing moving, and then that child tries to demonstrate what's in the card and everybody copies, and then they sort of move around. So there's lots of ways. You can put them on the bottom of the pool. So maybe research a little bit on how you can use SwimPix to make it engaging.
Fantastic.
I think another one that's really important is feedback from the children. What did you like about the lesson? What would you not like to do again? And I think that's really important for motivating what you were saying about, because if you've done water polo and they're all buzzing about it, then you know that's something that's going to get them engaging and passionate about what they're going to do. And I think my last one, yeah.
Just talk about that briefly. I don't think I personally do that enough. I do ask for feedback, but I get it. I 100% get it because they're the ones that are participating. Those are the ones that want to come back if you create a fun and engaging lesson. So that's something I work on myself a bit as well.
Yeah, I think it also opens up communication with children. It gives them a voice, and I really like that. So if they go, and children can be so honest, so you need to be prepared for that. But if they say, you could say to them, what would you like to do next week? What makes you want to come swim in? And then if you put that in next week, they feel like they're heard. They want to come. They're going to be excited. So
well,
I think
I know the answer. They want to jump in, and jump in.
Yeah.
They love jumping in.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's amazing though, isn't it? And then the last one I think would be particularly for school swimming is to put some kind of water safety in each lesson, rather than just one whole lesson. Teach them something, because I think education of being sensible around water could save their life. Even if they're a non-swimmer, if they know not to go near a riverbank because they might slip down it and end up in the water, that could save their life. So I kind of think that should be integrated throughout
100%.
your programs.
Well, I think the curriculum is so vast, and it's not a tiny curriculum. I teach years 3 and 4 week in, week out, so they have 2 years of swimming. My years 1 and 2, they focus on ASWI Club for Water Confidence, and 5 or 6 is interventions for the national curriculum outcomes. But it's such a massive curriculum.
It is.
It's not tiny as anything, because you're teaching black front paddle, back paddle. Then it's the full strokes into like front crawl, back crawl. Then you've got to make sure that you bring breaststroke in. Then it's water safety. Then you've got to bring in water confidence. There's so many things that you've got to link in. And talking about that point you just said, I have water safety every single lesson as my contrast activity, because like you said, for me, through experience, I'm very new into it, 2 years in, but through experience as the lead, I feel like if I do a water safety lesson in 8 weeks' time, and then the next one is in another 10 weeks' time, the thing is, if I leave a massive gap, all I'm doing is I have to teach what I taught from 8 weeks ago, because I remember.
Yeah,
absolutely. Reteach. So me bringing every single lesson, little bits and bobs. I did something called, I made it up, I called it Toy Story, and basically it was for level 1. It's all to do with water confidence. If I say Bo Peep, you wash your face. If I say Slinky, you spin round. If I say Andy's coming, lie on your back, and you get close. So I brought in that Andy's coming on purpose, because that's bringing in that the water safety with floating.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's as well, like, warm-ups can be a great way to revisit the things that you're not perhaps got in your main lesson, sort of from the week before. And even like, we all know that non-swimmers learn to float on their back. So there's no reason at that point why they can't learn float, breathe, relax. It's the same skill. It's just education on when you might use that.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing with school swimming for children is we need to make wearing a life jacket around open water the coolest thing to do, because that could again save their life. So I think and on our SwimPix, we've actually, on our water safety sets, we've actually got little life jackets on them, just to kind of make them think about, have I got my life jacket?
Brilliant. So lastly, have you got any events or anything that's happening in the near future? Anything that, the power is all you now. So is there anything that you want to talk about for the last couple of minutes?
Just that we haven't got any sort of promotions. We're happy if anyone's listening to this and would like us to come along to a swimming event to show you what we're doing, or then we'd be more than happy to do that. It's easy to contact me. My email is training@aswim.uk. So I'm open to hearing from anybody. To be honest, we just want to get the product out there. I really do believe it makes a difference. I've seen it make a difference. And it would be great to have every child having the opportunity to use SwimPix, to help them be safe in the water.
And for me, who's constantly striving for best practice, I'm definitely going to be using SwimPix throughout my lessons, because I think it's going to get me from good to outstanding. So I'm definitely going to be, you've definitely got a customer here. I'm 100% buying in.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you.
And thank you so much for coming on my first ever episode of my podcast. I really appreciate it.
That's lovely. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much for inviting me.